Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Super Lunch Roast Podcast, episode number 136. I am Brendan. Going to talk about UFC Fight Night. Volkov versus Rozenstruik. UFC Vegas 56 is also what this is called. We are going to cover the main card here. I will cover the prelims in another video. I'm going to go over Evloev versus Ige, the entire main card, and cover it fight by fight. Before we get started, if you like the UFC, if you like MMA, I post videos almost every week. I didn't post them last week because there was actually no MMA on. That's not true. There was a KSW event. I didn't watch it, and I kind of took a week off. But most weeks I'm posting 2 or 3 videos. I'm covering a ton of different events, the UFC, Eagle FC, Bellator, all that stuff. So if you like those things, subscribe to the channel because then you'll know when my next video comes out, and you'll see all those things. And if you like this video, hit the like button. I'd appreciate it. Cool. Let's get started. All right, so we are going to talk about Alexander Volkov getting the KO, I guess you could call it, victory over Jairzinho Rozenstruik. So this was important for the heavyweight division. 2 guys ranked in the top 10 here. And it ended a little bit weird. It ended in the first round. There's not a ton to break down here. I guess we could talk about implications from this fight, which is probably where I'm going to spend most of my time. Maybe we'll talk about the stoppage a little bit. So Volkov had his hands down as usual, and after every strike he was throwing, I thought for sure he was going to get knocked out in this fight. And these guys were just throwing back and forth, going crazy. Volkov got the best of it. Rozenstruik was kind of backed up against the fence, took a couple weird shots. Did that, that half drop where he caught himself halfway down and then faded off to the left where it looked like he was collapsing, right? And then Herb Dean steps in, stops the fight. You can actually see it, I believe, in the thumbnail, the strikes that kind of led to this weird stoppage. I don't think it was a bad stoppage by Herb Dean. Did I say Herb Dean? I don't think it was a bad stoppage by Herb Dean at all. I feel like he played it. Here's the thing. The stoppage might have been early, but we all have the benefit of seeing it in slow motion, seeing it multiple times, getting to analyze it afterwards, saying like, oh, clearly he wasn't out, this and that. We get to say all that stuff because we're not in there trying to deal with 1,000 things in real time. I understand that's his job. I think he did a good job with this stoppage. Right? I don't think it was a bad stoppage. Do I think he could have let it go a few more punches? Absolutely. Do I think the outcome would have changed? That one's actually really hard to tell. There's no way to know because Rozenstruik might have been able to get back up and then land a few of his own. Volkov might have gassed himself out. There's no way to know. But all that's conjecture. It doesn't matter. So, you see, he started to crumble and fade off to the side, like I said, and that's always a sign of a stoppage, right? Like when you see a guy fade to one side, it's just not a good look. And it happened from a punch. So maybe he was trying to get in a better position, and maybe he did have his wits about him. But judging by how he was walking after the fight was waved off, I'm not going to say that he completely had his wits about him. It's not a terrible stoppage. It's a good win for Volkov. I think they were in a 50-50 scenario anyway. So, Rozenstruik could have landed a good shot in there and done the exact same thing to Volkov. So, not a bad stoppage. I hope people don't give Herb Dean shit for this. Here's a very, a very funny quote, and it's funny because of the context. Not the context of this fight, but a past fight. So this is from Jairzinho Rozenstruik. I'm kind of confused on how the fight went. I'm disappointed that it was stopped. It definitely was a troubling situation, but I was far from giving up the fight. Did someone lay flat on the ground with his eyes shut? Question mark. That's what we call a knockout. So basically, he's saying that he wasn't laying down on the ground, therefore he wasn't knocked out. Why does this sound familiar? Would it be that with 10 seconds left in a 5-round fight against Alistair Overeem, the exact same thing happened, but he was the beneficiary of it? Overeem wasn't lying flat on his ground. It was almost identical, actually. Yes, there was a big cut on his lip, but there was 10 seconds left in the fight. This was not in the first round. This was not, a flash knockdown that put Alistair Overeem on his ass and then he got up. No, he caught himself halfway. Rozenstruik didn't step in for the finish, and the ref stepped in. Dan Ige stepped in to stop the fight. Sound familiar? So you can't have it both ways. Okay? I'm not saying that this is right or wrong. It happened. Okay? I don't agree with that stoppage before. This stoppage, I think, was arguably a better stoppage because Volkov was still engaged. That's actually the biggest difference is Volkov was still engaged in punching. He was still engaged in landing damage. He didn't step away, put his hands up, and try to do the walk-off KO. He was still in there trying to actively finish the fight. Rozenstruik, in the Overeem fight, actually stepped back, and Ige stepped in. So that's what differentiates it for me, right? I don't dislike Jairzinho. I think he has his issues as a fighter, and they've been very obvious over the past couple fights. It's just he's not a... you can't have it both ways, right? You can't be the beneficiary of it, and in your statement say, "Oh, I got that knockout. I got that knockout." But then in the same token, say, "Oh, hey, I wasn't laying down on the ground with my eyes closed. It wasn't a knockout." So you can't have it both ways. Either you lost this one fair and square, or your win over Alistair Overeem is null and void. Pick one. You can't have both. So I know it's a weird place to go for this fight, but it's so fitting that a fighter says that kind of crap. It's just perfect. So before this weekend, Volkov was 7 and Rozenstruik was 8. So Volkov I don't think he can jump ahead of Aspinall because he just lost to him. And Rozenstruik, I guess, could move down, but we're going to move Chris Daukaus up, Marcin Tybura up. Why? Because Chris Daukaus is coming off the loss. He lost to Derek Lewis. I don't know. This is weird because they're both right next to each other. They're not near they're not in the top 5, so neither one of them is probably going to fight for a title next anyway. And they've both fought a lot of the people in the top 5 here. Derek Lewis versus Rozenstruik could make sense. Volkov versus Lewis, you could run that one back, although I really don't want to see it. And we've seen him both against Blades, and he needs to be fighting for a title or a title eliminator. No, he needs to fight Stipe. I've already said my piece on that, and I'm not saying anything else about that one. Okay. Yeah, I think it's a good win for Volkov. Good to see him back on the win. He's traded wins and losses. Lost to Cyril Gane, beats Tybura, loses to Aspinall, beats Rozenstruik. So I think he's kind of where he is, where he belongs. He can win a couple, but he's going to win and lose against guys who are in the top 10. It's all about matchups, what happens on the night. This is heavyweights, and he doesn't have a way to really neutralize a lot of heavyweight offense. All right, he doesn't shut down people striking. He's not an overwhelming grappler. He just has to deal with the variables, and there's too many of them, and a lot of these heavyweight fights end up getting into 50-50 situations. Even in the top 10 we're talking about here. I mean, unless you're talking about at the elite level, Cyril Gane can shut down people striking with his striking. We got Curtis Blades, who can neutralize people with his wrestling. Doesn't work every time, but most of the time it has. You've got Francis Ngannou, who, against most people, just neutralizes them by either making them scared to engage or straight up knocking him out. So where does Volkov fit in? Let's see who they match him up with next and how he can, because I don't see him adapting. I mean, the dude's my age, so I mean that's not old for a heavyweight. Maybe he has a few more good years in him. He does have 45 fights though. Okay, let's move on here. Mosvar Evloev versus Dan Ige. This fight was fun. Very competitive. Not a close. I wouldn't say it's a close fight because there was some pretty clear situations. I felt. I just felt like it's one of those things where it's very clear who won each round. Okay, Evloev did. Evloev gets the decision win here. And it was very... Because Dan Ige landed a lot of good shots here. So both these guys were throwing really hard. Evloev was landing nasty. He landed this nasty flying knee in the first round, and then Ige somehow didn't die from it, so that was fantastic. Evloev got 2 takedowns, didn't really have control in that first round, and because Ige managed to work his way back to neutral, but Evloev won that first round. I mean, if you want to look at the striking numbers here, 23-17, and he did land the bigger shots, at least one big shot in that round that really, put a stamp on that round. Second round was kind of more of the same. Evloev was opening up even more in that second round. He was just constant pressure, landing nice jabs, good straights. Evloev, would take down and control to end the round for, the last 90 seconds. I had it 20-18, and Ige needed a finish, and obviously he didn't get it. Evloev just it was a crazy grapple fest in the third round, tons of control for him, and he gets the win here. So here's another, this card wasn't exactly stacked as far as ranked fights, right? But these guys are both ranked in the top 10 here. Oh, wait, no, they weren't. Top 15, sorry. Top 15. And, Ige is probably going to drop down 2 spots, and then Evloev's either going to trade with him. Yeah, he'll probably trade with him. He'll probably bounce up to 10. So Evloev's moving in here. He's going to have to fight someone in the top 10 next. And we're talking about moving into title contention, right? Moving into fighting, Chan Sung Jung, Arnold Allen, Josh Emmett, Giga. He's going to have to fight somebody there next, and that's going to be the real test. If Evloev looks as good as he did tonight, or last night, if he looks that good against anybody in the top 10, anybody that I mentioned, or anybody else, he's a real contender. He's the real deal. If he struggles, it doesn't mean he's bad. It just means, he's a contender, and maybe he could crack the top 5. Maybe he could get a title shot, but it doesn't look like he's going to make that jump just yet. So this next fight is going to be very telling for Evloev as to where he sits and what his future is going to look like. So, I mean, it was a good fight. I thought he looked great. I think Ige is a really good challenge, and he was able to handily beat him. So, not a bad fight for him at all. Michael Trizano taking on Lucas Almeida. So, this fight was fun, too. Almeida ends up getting the TKO finish in the third round. It was a close fight. It was a close fight as far as, I think, the second round? So Almeida was doing a really good job the whole first round, landing more often, and with 40 seconds left, Trizano landed a left hook to drop Almeida. So even though the striking numbers don't look very favorable for Trizano was able to really hurt Almeida in that first round, and I think that swayed it over. So that first round I gave to Trizano. Then Almeida in the second round got his own left hook and dropped Trizano. So with that, and there was a big cut that opened up because he ended up getting on top, and there was a big cut that was opened up to a headbutt. So that's not real damage. It doesn't count, but Almeida clearly won that second round. So it was tied going into the third, and then in the third round here, Almeida just landed a really big left hook and then got the finish to leave it out of the the judges' hands, which is a good thing because they kind of did screw up at least one decision. I believe that was his UFC debut. It was. He had a loss in the Dana White Contender Series, and I think he looked really good in his debut. He's an exciting prospect. He's very active. I don't know if he's got the best chin based off what I've seen, and if he wants to stay as active in the striking exchanges like he did there, he might have problems going forward. But we will see. All right. Karine Silva versus Poliana Botelho. I did pronounce those right, I think. Women's flyweight. So I think this was also Silva's debut, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, her USA debut after her win on the Contender Series. So also a win for her. She ends up getting the finish with 5 seconds left. Yes. They were just exchanging kicks for most of this round. Then they finally got an exchange. Silva landed a good right hand and then rushed into a takedown, got top position, and got a darce and landed and ended up cinching that up with 5 seconds left in the round, getting the finish. So really excited. Guys, I understand that the rest of this card might not be the most exciting, so we're kind of going to move through them a little quick. I do have some side notes about this card in general. She looked good against a relatively veteran fighter in Botelho. But, all these women's divisions, there's such a large gap. And I know I mention it every time, but it's important to keep context because you have to look at these women and say, can any of them take on the champ? Do any of them have anything that looks like they can challenge the champion? I didn't see that from Silva, but this was her first UFC fight. So we'll see. It's just these divisions, they tend to move very fast because there's a lot of stale matchups for the title. So they like to push new prospects, new talent very quickly into title contention and then a title shot. So you have to keep that in context when evaluating these fighters, especially in the female divisions. It's very similar with shallow divisions in the men's as well. So at light heavyweight and heavyweight, although heavyweight has gotten a little bit deeper, but heavyweight has a lot of stale matchups in the top 10. Same with light heavyweight. There's a lot of stale matchups. So they like to push new challengers. Osbourne taking on Zarrukh Adashev. This fight ended pretty quickly. So a minute into this fight, Osbourne landed a counter right hand and put him out. It was a really good shot, great punch. This was in the thumbnail when he got the ground and pound and ended up finishing him on the ground. So Zarrukh landed a couple of shots of his own, but the power difference is what was the differentiator here. Osbourne looks good. Not much else to say here. Not much to break down. Sorry, guys. There really isn't. It's not groundbreaking. It's not division breaking or anything like that. Alonzo Menifield versus Askar Mozharov. Wait. Mozharov. I don't know. Menifield knocked him out. That's another quick knockout too. Sorry, not quick knock. First round. So he ended up getting a crucifix. So Alonzo landed the first big right hand. That's what I remember. So in the very first exchange, he lands a big right hand, then push for a takedown. They ended up getting back up. Askar does. And then there's a little bit of exchanging on the feet. But then at 130, it goes back to the ground. Alonzo gets on top, manages to get into the crucifix position and finish the fight. There was some shit talking after the fight. I don't know what was going on. There was a lot of heated words and hot blood on this fight card. It was very weird to see. I don't know what the hell was going on. So there's that. Okay, a couple notes here. So on this main card, in 1 hour and 12 minutes, there were 3 fights. Okay, so these first 3 fights. All right, now look at these first 3 fights with me. 4 minutes and 40 seconds, 4 minutes and 55 seconds, and 1 minute and 1 second. So under 11 minutes of actual fighting for an hour and 12 minutes. You essentially had an hour of commercials and 10 minutes of fighting. What the hell is with the pacing? We get a couple finishes and all of a sudden we have to slow everything down. That's baloney. This was bad. This was actually very painful to watch. So if you did not watch this card, when you're going through on ESPN Plus, just fly through them. Just find the start of every fight, watch it, and then move on. There is nothing in between, nothing worth watching, I promise. I saw the commercial for Gru, 40 times. That's too many times. And in between every round, too. Like, there's commercials in between every round. So even on the main card, on the fights that didn't get finished in the first round, you're watching commercials the whole fight as well. Yeah, so that one... the entire card was 3 hours, and there was less than 40 minutes of fighting. So 2 hours worth of commercials at least. Not necessarily unacceptable or anything like that. It's just painful to watch. All right, that's it for the main card. If you're looking for the prelims, I got that coming out in the next video. That's pretty much it. I know this fight wasn't that exciting. This card wasn't that exciting. There wasn't a whole lot of heat on this card. There will be next week. Next week is the big one. Lots of 2 title fights, great fights. Wait, not 2 title fights. No, because the Joanna fight is not for a title. But it's a rematch of a former one of the best UFC fights in history. So if you made it this far, I really appreciate it. If you like this stuff, I promise you'll like every video that I put out, or almost every video I put out, because they all follow this the same blueprint here, right? So subscribe to the channel because you'll know when my next video comes out. It'll be probably in a couple minutes, or it's actually the prelim video while you're watching this one should already be out. And then next week we'll go over the main card. The actual freaking pay-per-view, right? The big card. So please subscribe, and if you made it this far, you had to like something about the video, so just click the like button. I would really appreciate it. But yeah, if you don't want to watch a prelim video, totally understand. That's not everybody's cup of tea, but I would appreciate it if you went over there just to check it out, skip through, find something you want to engage about. There is some controversial judging decisions, so I'll be touching on that a little bit. I appreciate y'all for coming here, spending time watching this stuff. It means a lot to me, and I hope you have a great week. Love y'all.